It's public speaking session.
Doug, thank you. If you would stay for just a second, I have to acknowledge today Doug, who we know is the face, the Director of Community Affairs for the MTA. Doug has informed us that he intends to retire shortly after 30 years of service at the MTA, nearly 30 years. Doug actually joined, and he reminds me of this frequently, the week before I did. So he has me by a little bit. For many of us, he's been a critically important public face of the MTA. Somebody who's represented us in public forums, somebody who's been a voice of reason during contentious discussions that have taken place, somebody that I've turned to in this chair at any number of public hearings for advice and to understand how to be able to deal with this. I could go on and on about Doug's contributions, but I, like many other people, I'm a little bit worried about the phrase that Doug uses so well, which is to please summarize my remarks. So, Doug, let me say on behalf of the entire board, thank you for your outstanding service. You have exemplified public service. You've been a careful and thoughtful voice of the MTA for many, many years. And we, as well as the writing public, are in your appreciation. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. You did that in less than 2 minutes.
Thank you. The light was going to go, I know.
I just want to thank all the members of the board today and in years gone by. People don't realize how hard the board works. I hear so much in the media from the public, and they should only know the hours of diligence that goes into what you do. And I think the public actually owes this board and you a great deal of gratitude, and hopefully someday they'll come to realize how integral you were to the recovery of the MTA. And it was an honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Can I just say one thing? I was going to use a word to describe Doug, and that's a diplomat. I mean, and here you were acting completely diplomatic in the way you thanked us, and this is supposed to be a thank you to you. And what always impressed me, I only know the sort of the public persona of Doug, namely the public hearings, and what always impressed me was the respect that, okay, you showed respect for us, and it's sort of easy to show respect for your coworkers. That's just goes with the territory. But when you show respect for the public and the community, that is something that I just gave me complete respect of you. And I am going to miss you, because 1/3 of your tenure here you've been at my right side, and I will really miss you at the public hearings. And I know what you do and have done for the MTA goes much deeper than what we see at the public hearings, and I'm sure the MTA at large is going to have a huge hole to fill. And thank you, Doug.
Most appreciated.
If I can turn now to the business of our regular meeting, may I ask for a vote, please? Motion to approve the minutes of the January board meeting? Second? In favor? Opposed? Thank you. Report from the Committee on Finance. Jim, please.
There are 2 action items today. The first item is to certify and transfer the 2010 TBTA operating surplus, advance the 2011 TBTA surplus, and take the other related actions set forth more fully on pages 26 to 35 of the board book. The second action item is for approval to authorize the MRT escalator payments to Dutchess, Orange, and Rockland counties. The committee recommends these actions, and I move them.
Do I have a second? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
There are no non-competitive procurements. There are 2 competitive procurements in the amount of $11.8 million. I note that the term of the McKinsey contract for strategic sourcing has been reduced to 1 year with 2 one-year options. Also, the chairman is recused from consideration of this procurement, and I move these procurements.
Do I have a second? Excuse me? Your recusal as well, so we know both of our recusals, okay? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
There are no ratifications. There are 2 real estate action items this month, which is described in the board materials. I move these action items.
Do I have a second? Second. In favor? Opposed? Thank you.
This concludes the Finance Committee report.
Thank you very much. We move to the report from the Committee on Transit. Doreen, please.
Good morning. On behalf of Transit, I present the following for the board's approval. 8 procurements totaling $16.5 million, 2 in the amount of $0.8 million. The committee recommends these, and I move them.
Do I have a second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Of course.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask that the record be made clear, as disclosed at the meeting of the Transit Committee, the item that is on page 56, Green Rock, is a proprietary item and therefore has to be done on a non-competitive basis. Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
Number 2, if I may, with respect to the item on page 58, may I ask why a request for qualifications was not issued in the first instance rather than just proceeding in this fashion?
I would have to ask Transit. Was this discussed at the Transit Committee?
I'm sorry, which one are we talking
I
about?
asked that same question, and I was told I'd get an answer. Why was a request for qualification not issued in the first instance rather than proceeding directly to an RFP?
The document in front of you is a request to use the RFP process. Because in public bidding under 1209, and this is considered a public works contract, we are prohibited from pre-qualifying contractors. We can qualify products under 1209, but not contractors.
You cannot use an RFQ? Request for qualifications?
No, we are unable to pre-qualify contractors.
Well, I wanted you to say on the record.
Yep.
Further questions? I think I have a motion and a second. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Charles, thank you. Thank you for your questions. There are 4 competitive procurements in the amount of $14.4 million. The committee recommends them, and I move them.
Have a second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And finally, there are 2 ratifications in the amount of $1.3 million. The committee also recommends these, and I move them.
Do I have a second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That concludes it.
And we thank you. The Committee on Bus Operations, Nancy, please.
Yes, there are 4 non-competitive procurements for the amount of $86.1 million. After discussion, the committee recommended these procurements, and I move them. Sure.
Can I take a second before we go to discussion? Thank you.
My apologies. I note that the Daimler North America proposal is $1 million more than the new Flyer proposal for the same bus, and that Daimler has, according to the report, had some difficulties in terms of unspecified significant adverse information, unquote. Why are we paying $1 million more to an entity that has unspecified significant adverse information concerning its operations?
The reason is this is a product or a culmination of years of effort to encourage bus manufacturers to do business with us. Again, for the longest period of time, we've been issuing non-competitive procurements. The extent to which it's $1 million difference, that $1 million represents between the three contractors, you only see two here, that will be awarded contracts between a 1% and 3% difference in pricing. This is the product. This is a procurement which allows them to do significant testing for us, not only the structural but also the emissions testing and all. And we believe that the prices are fair and reasonable across the board.
May I finally inquire, what is, if you can disclose it, the unspecified significant adverse information?
The significant adverse information had to do with over foreign corruption acts that occurred overseas, both in China as well as Russia.
That troubles me. Mr. Chair.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
Steve, I note that the assembly of these buses will be in New York State, but the manufacturer will not. If these buses are successful, is Daimler going to be encouraged to build them in New York State?
Currently, Daimler does build. The final assembly occurs in New York State, in Oriskany, New York.
Yeah, the final assembly.
Yes, they actually begin the product of the build in Canada, and they migrate the build down to Oriskany. Yeah, and when we go through a competitive procurement, all of the manufacturers are encouraged to increase their New York State content because we have a evaluation criteria that favors the increase and an increased amount of New York State content.
So there is a weight to be given to.
Absolutely, and it's a considerable incentive.
Thank
The
you.
I think, as Steve has said, I think the importance of these contracts is not just the number of buses, but the opportunity to open up competition in a market. Those of us who've been associated with the MTA for a long period of time will recognize the difficulties we've had in getting real competition across the bus industry. And I think this organization has always been best placed when it is able to get competition from supplying industry. I think we have to look at everything in that context that we're dealing with right now. Ultimately, if we have that, there is the opportunity to be able to achieve the objectives that we're talking about. If we don't have that, then we're in a situation in which we are dealing with sole source suppliers, which has rarely worked out well for this organization. I think we have a motion and we have a second. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, and there are no competitive procurements nor ratifications. That's it.
Thank you very much. Jim, I think we're back to you.
The combined on-time performance for the two railroads during the month of January was 91.4%. There is one non-competitive procurement for Metro North in a total amount of $800,000. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
Do I have a second? Second. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Please note that the staff summary for the contract modification with Air has been deferred. There are three competitive procurements, one for the Long Island Railroad and two for Metro North, in a total amount of $3.4 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
In favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
There are no ratifications this month. This concludes the Metro North Long Island Committee report.
Thank you. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mitch, you're pinch hitting on bridges and tunnels.
Yes, although we can never be as entertaining as Mark, we will try.
You could try it.
I can understand that. Bridges and Tunnels Committee met this month and recommends the following. There are no non-competitive procurements. There is one competitive procurement in the amount of $11.986 million regarding the Bronx Whitestone Bridge. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
Have a second?
Second.
In favor? Opposed?
And there are no ratifications, and this concludes the Bridges and Tunnels report.
And I think that concludes the regular business of this meeting. Can I ask for a motion, please, to adjourn the meeting?
Motion made.
Oh, my God.
We are adjourned. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning.
Mr.
Namaco?
Hello. Your previous two employers are now contractors with the MTA,
My previous two employers.
Transport for London and McKinsey. What can McKinsey do that no one else can do?
Well, I'm recused from this issue, so I'm going to let Charlie speak to the question of McKinsey rather than myself. I don't think Transport for London is a contractor at the MTA, though, but I'll, in any case. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, Transport for London, we have a cooperation agreement with that allows us to exchange expert knowledge that we have and that they have, and we use that in various ways, but there's been no exchange of money, and there has been exchange of knowledge. With regard to McKinsey, the hiring of McKinsey has nothing to do with anybody who has worked here or any other matter in that respect. There was a competitive process to do work that we analyzed and we thought needed to be done, and McKinsey was selected as the most qualified contractor on a qualification and price basis. And so we've retained them to conduct what's called a strategic sourcing exercise, which means looking at all aspects of, in this case, at least in the first year, about $900 million worth of procurement spend that we engage in, and to see what efficiencies might be generated from that. And this is a standard practice that public and private sector companies engage in to make themselves more efficient.
Is there is there a reward for them if they find a certain amount of savings? They'll get a certain amount. Can you lay that out?
Correct. This is strictly a fee for results. We expect the work that they do to generate results over the next number of years. If we improve our procurements now, those will pay benefits into the future. But the reward scheme that we've entered into pays McKinsey 9% of the annualized savings, which means the sort of first year's savings they get a share of, and we get 100% of the savings that we're able to generate in years thereafter.
Anybody else with a McKinsey question before Charlie goes?
And I directed to Mr. Water. Mr. Water, you worked there. Your expertise has already produced results for the MTA, and you have talked about them, and I've reported them. Why can't you bring your knowledge of that and work with your team that you established here, including the efficiency expert that you brought on right from the beginning? Why isn't it your job?
I think you have to.
Yep.
I can't touch this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, we are doing exactly what you say. There are any number of areas where we're bringing the same skills that one would apply as a consultant to the activities of the MTA. But in some cases, I think as we demonstrated last year, we do that on our own. In other cases, we do that through consultants. So this is one case where we've decided that given the amount of work that we have to do as a procurement organization, and given that we are implementing a major shared service initiative, that we would be best served in the short term by having the assistance of a consulting firm like McKinsey help us in this area.
Maybe the heart of the question is the transparency of knowing what the consultants do. I've asked what the Accenture role was, and my request was denied, to find out just the specifics of what they contributed. How are we going to know that this is a transparent process?
Well, we are the management. We make the decisions. In the case of Accenture, they provided us with analytical assistance. In one case, which was what was called rapid procurement, they actually conducted an exercise to negotiate better prices for us with our presence. But generally speaking, McKinsey, Accenture, or any other consulting firm gives us advice that we act on. In the case of this particular contract, the strategic sourcing contract, they will be advising us on how we can reduce our procurement costs by $10 million, $20 million or more. But at the end of the day, they are working with our people and helping our people do that. So I don't know what the transparency issue is. We make the decisions. They give us advice that we act on.
So, similar to Accenture, there won't be like a final report generated by McKinsey.
No, we're not doing reports. We're doing management action. So, for example, if you take the rapid procurement exercise last year, there wasn't a report to be done. There were effectively, over a period of weeks, negotiations with vendors in a structured way, and the results were the procurement actions themselves. There was no need for a report. Similarly, in areas like administrative staffing or deferring or eliminating projects, the results speak for themselves, and we don't have a volume that we put on a shelf and said, here's our Bible of how to do this.
Any other thing on McKinsey before we let Charlie go? Okay, we'll move on to the rest. Mr. Dunn.
Can you talk about the $100 million loss in funds from the state and how you can absorb that? Or how you plan to deal with that without affecting riders?
Well, we're working out the specifics of how we'll have to be able to deal with that. I think what we've stated is a very clear commitment coming out of the extremely difficult year that we've had last year to be able to deal with this without service cuts and without relying on fare increases. I think that in addition, I would make the point that we are very, very focused on the quality of services that we're providing as well, and we're looking to be able to do that. Key in being able to do this are the type of efforts that we've been talking about before, areas where we can reduce the costs for things that we're doing right now without directly impacting services, improving productivity and finding better ways to be able to do things, streamlining processes. These are all the things that we attempted to do and have been doing since I came on board. Last year, we were very successful in doing that. It's an effort that continues, and we're going to continue to work to do it this year. We already had it in our plan, and the need to be able to meet an additional $100 million will challenge us, but we're going to work to do that.
Can you address the future of Long Island Bus and whether the MTA has plans to reduce service on Long Island Bus?
We're still formulating the plans for Long Island Bus. Clearly, there remains a disconnect between the available funding from the county and the service that's being provided.
Mr. Walter, I'm taking the subway over here. I got out of Grand Central. I took the 7th train up, the escalator, one of the 2 escalators were out. When I got to the 42nd Street and Park 110 East 42nd, the escalator was out. I've been doing stories about the 53rd and Lex where you have a private owner not repairing after 5 years. And then the Boston Properties escalators out the 63rd and Lex seems to be constantly. Is this something that will go down as the budget is reduced? Will we see fewer and fewer escalators working? Will it be dirtier as well? Are these the things that we'll be doing? Do you have a list of priorities? Obviously, like is the morning commute more important than the afternoon commute? What will people see over the period of time?
First off, let me say that I appreciate the frustration that you feel, other customers feel, and frankly that I feel about our escalators and elevators right now. I don't think we're providing the service, whether it's provided on the escalators that we maintain or the escalators that are being maintained by private parties that our customers have a right to expect. And so we shouldn't stand on where we are. So I think your point is well taken. I'm not saying we're alone in this, and it's small comfort. I think other transit systems around the country have struggled with this, but it doesn't take away from the fact and the need to be able to deal with this and deal with this differently. We have been trying a number of things on escalators and elevators. It's not a budget issue, but we've been trying a number of things. They have not worked. We're not providing the performance that we really want to have. So we are now redoubling our efforts again. Tom Prendergast and his team and I are working now to try to develop a new focus and a new plan around escalators and elevators, recognize what has worked and what has not worked, and redirect our activity again. Where the use of escalators and elevators in our system is an important part of the transport system. In the same way, by the way, that I would argue that lifts on buses are an important part of our transportation system today, and the ability to have low-floor buses and buses that kneel at curbs is an important part of our transportation system. It's reflective, I think, of the fact that as a society, we want to have the convenience that comes from this, both to make our system more accessible to people with disabilities, and for many of us who find it more convenient to be able to use an escalator in the way that we do it. We have to find a way to be able to do that with a reliability for a system that carries as many people as we do, that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in a way that is unusual in most applications where escalators are actually used. But this can't be an excuse, and we have to find a better way to be able to do it. We will be coming back to the MTA Board, to the Transit Committee, with a plan to be able to do this. But we can't stop with where we are.
What has worked? I mean, for example, Miller Global, after 3 years, finally did open up the escalator. That I know the MTA has been trying to get them to open, and frankly, Fox 5 and Arnold Diaz maybe can read stories about it. But finally, the embarrassment finally got them to fix that after several years. Is that the way? I mean, can you publicly put, private owners who don't fix the escalators, can you post it on your website and say, for example, 885 Lipstick Building, they have a long escalator that's broken for 5 years. It happens to be on my route in the way it works. It's pretty frustrating personally. Is there a way to do something innovative like that? What has worked to get that?
I think the relationship with the private parties on the escalators is frustrating because people have entered into agreements in which they've agreed to build and maintain escalators. They haven't lived up to those agreements. However you look at it and whatever purpose, if you have an escalator that's out of service for 3 years, one cannot argue that anyone's lived up to the agreement of having an escalator that is there. I don't know that you could paint that all with the same brush. There are different circumstances in different places. But as I said before, there's a large number of escalators that we control, we maintain, and we deal with escalators and elevators. We're going to take a new approach and redouble our efforts on that, and we'll come back on that. We're also working to be able to reach out to all the private owners of escalators as well, but I don't think it's one size fits all. I wish it were as easy as saying that. I don't think that it really is. I'm happy to see when an escalator comes back into service. I'm disturbed to hear that it took 3 years.
Do you have a timetable at all? Is it this year we could see some improvement?
Well, we'll be coming back. I don't want to commit to a timetable right now. We'll be coming back to the Transit Committee. It is a difficult problem. There's no question about it, and I want to make sure that what we come back with is something that we can stand behind, that there is a clear timetable, and that we're accountable and transparent and open in what we're going to be able to do.
Anybody else? In the board meeting, the board members asked that you not use consultants as much. Is there going to be an effort to cut back on those contracts?
We are using consultants in limited circumstances where we believe that it will be beneficial to the organization. I believe that the use of consultants where we have done it has been justified. I believe it has brought in positive results for our organization in terms of the way that we've been able to achieve a more efficient and more effective transit system. And in everything that we're doing, we're very conscious of the fact that we're utilizing public dollars and we want to use them in the most effective way.
Anybody else? One quick one?
Come on.
Sorry. Do you have can you say on the Kawasaki M8, can you say that the first car can be on the Metro North this year? This year? Just one. Not all,
I think the M8s are in the final stages of their testing process. Look, I think the M8 has been frustrating to everyone. Notwithstanding the fact that the testing has taken longer, I think I continue to support the fact that we need to ensure that we have a car that will meet the safety and reliability requirements that have been set forth. We use rail cars for 40 years. Decisions made today have a very long-standing impact in the way that we're doing it. The testing that the first train has been going through is what's known as a 4,000-mile test. It is literally at the last stages of that test now, and I have every expectation that we will see that car in service hopefully by the end of the first quarter, not the end of the year. Thank you.
Thanks.